On se sent en famille en ce sens que la Russie est une famille aussi pour l'Afrique.
Has Russia truly gained anything from Senegal? Many claim that Russia is influencing Senegal's decisions. However, Russia may give Senegal the sense of security it deserves, becoming a viable alternative to Western powers. But what if Russia influences Senegal's decisions and exerts pressure on them? Is such a scenario possible? Let's find out. With its alliance with Russia, Senegal makes decisions no one could have imagined. One of them is to kick France out. But before we know how Russia's alliance led Senegal to this decision, let's first discuss what historical factors contributed to Senegal's decision to engage with Russia. Senegal's decision to engage with Russia is deeply influenced by historical factors that have shaped its foreign policy trajectory over the years. Like many African nations, Senegal carries the legacy of colonialism, having been under French rule for a significant part of its history. This colonial experience has left Senegal and other African countries cautious of Western dominance and eager to diversify their diplomatic relationships. Moreover, Senegal's diplomatic actions during the Cold War era, where it navigated between the spheres of influence of the United States and the Soviet Union, have left a lasting imprint on its approach to global politics. While the Cold War may have ended, the diplomatic lessons learned during that period continued to inform Senegal's foreign policy decisions. Senegal's alignment with the principles of the non-aligned movement further underscores its commitment to independence, sovereignty, and non-interference in internal affairs. This stance reflects Senegal's aspiration to maintain autonomy in its foreign relations and seek partnerships beyond traditional alliances. In the context of a shifting geopolitical landscape in Africa, characterized by the growing influence of emerging global powers, Senegal sees an opportunity to expand its diplomatic horizons. As Russia asserts itself on the African continent, Senegal recognizes the potential for economic and security cooperation that transcends its historical ties with former colonial powers. But how did Senegal's collaboration with Russia influence its relationships with other Western nations? Senegal's collaboration with Russia can potentially influence its relationships with other Western nations in several ways, both diplomatically and economically. Firstly, Senegal's deepening ties with Russia may lead to a recalibration of its relationships with traditional Western allies, particularly former colonial powers like France. As Senegal expands its network of diplomatic partnerships, Western nations may perceive this as a shift in geopolitical alignment and adjust their engagement strategies with Senegal accordingly. Secondly, Senegal's collaboration with Russia in economic sectors such as energy, mining, and infrastructure could impact its economic relationships with Western nations. Depending on the nature and extent of these collaborations, Western countries view Senegal's economic diversification efforts as complementary or competitive to their regional interests. Moreover, Senegal's engagement with Russia on security issues, such as military cooperation and counterterrorism, may prompt Western nations to reassess their security cooperation with Senegal. While Western countries remain key partners for Senegal in defense training and capacity-building areas, Senegal's expanding partnerships with non-Western actors like Russia lead to adjustments in security cooperation dynamics. But was it necessary to end ties with past allies for Russia? Here is a misunderstanding. People think Senegal is being forced to end ties with the West. This is what Senegal wants. Russia is just an alternative to that. It's not necessarily necessary for Senegal to end ties with past allies and engage with Russia. Instead, Senegal's approach to diplomatic relationships with various countries, including Russia and its traditional Western allies, is characterized by a nuanced balancing act. Senegal's decision to collaborate with Russia does not inherently mean severing ties with past allies. Instead, Senegal seeks to diversify its diplomatic partnerships and leverage relationships with multiple actors to advance its national interests. This approach allows Senegal to maintain flexibility in its foreign policy while maximizing opportunities for economic development, security cooperation, and diplomatic influence. Senegal's engagement with Russia complements its existing relationships with Western nations rather than replacing them. By expanding its network of alliances, Senegal aims to enhance its diplomatic autonomy and access new opportunities for cooperation across various sectors. Ultimately, Senegal's foreign policy is driven by its pursuit of sovereignty, independence, and national development objectives. While collaboration with Russia may adjust its relationships with past allies, the goal is not necessarily to end those ties, but to navigate a complex and evolving global landscape that best serves Senegal's interests. If Russia wanted to make Senegal dependent on it, it would also force it to end ties with other nations. But this is not what Russia is doing. As we said, Russia complements existing ties like Senegal's ties with China. Yes, some changes can be made because of Russia, but nothing is forced. Now comes an important question. How does Senegal's evolving relationship with Russia reflect a shifting geopolitical landscape in Africa? Senegal's evolving relationship with Russia mirrors the changing dynamics of geopolitics in Africa, where traditional power structures are being challenged and new alliances are forming. But not by Russia, but by Senegal. Senegal is asking the West questions and comparing them with Russia. Here's a reminder to please like and share the video and subscribe to our channel to watch more videos on Black culture, history, civilization, and identity. Let's continue now. Historically, African nations have often been caught in geopolitical rivalries between global powers. However, Senegal's increasing cooperation with Russia signals a diversification of alliances and a move away from reliance on former colonial powers or dominant Western influences. Russia's growing presence in Africa, including Senegal, signifies its intent to assert itself as a key player in the region's geopolitics. This is part of Russia's broader strategy to counterbalance Western influence and expand its global reach. Senegal's willingness to engage with Russia reflects its desire for strategic partnerships that align with its national interests rather than simply adhering to historical ties or Western preferences. Furthermore, Senegal's engagement with Russia highlights the multipolar nature of Africa's geopolitical landscape. African nations increasingly seek partnerships with multiple global actors, including Russia, China, and emerging powers from the global south. This diversification of alliances allows African countries like Senegal to leverage their geopolitical position for economic development, security cooperation, and diplomatic influence. Now, let's talk about all areas of interest between Senegal and Russia. This will help you understand why, when Russia does not want to replace the West, Senegal insists on doing so. Starting with the economy, how does economic cooperation between Senegal and Russia benefit both nations? Economic cooperation between Senegal and Russia can benefit both nations in several ways. For Senegal, collaboration with Russia opens up opportunities for investment, trade, and economic development across various sectors. Conversely, Russia gains access to Senegal's growing economy and strategic position in West Africa. Senegal benefits from Russian investment in key energy, mining, agriculture, and infrastructure sectors. Russian companies can contribute capital, technology, and expertise to help develop Senegal's infrastructure, exploit natural resources, and diversify its economy. This investment can stimulate job creation, boost economic growth, and improve living standards for Senegalese citizens. Furthermore, increased trade between Senegal and Russia can expand market opportunities for both countries. Senegal can export its goods, such as agricultural products and textiles, to Russia, while importing Russian products, including machinery, technology, and energy resources. This trade diversification reduces dependence on traditional markets and enhances economic resilience for both nations. Moreover, economic cooperation with Russia can facilitate technology transfer and knowledge sharing, particularly in sectors where Russia has expertise. Senegal can benefit from Russian advancements in energy efficiency, agriculture, and manufacturing, improving productivity and competitiveness in its industries. Economic cooperation with Senegal offers Russia access to new markets and investment opportunities in Africa. Senegal's stable political environment, strategic geographic location, and growing economy make it an attractive destination for Russian businesses seeking to expand their regional presence. Furthermore, collaboration with Senegal aligns with Russia's broader economic diversification strategy, which aims to reduce reliance on traditional markets and explore new growth opportunities in emerging economies. Now, let's talk about military relations. Military cooperation between Senegal and Russia significantly enhances Senegal's security and bolsters Russia's influence in Africa. Military cooperation with Russia provides several key benefits for Senegal. First, it strengthens Senegal's defense capabilities by providing access to Russian military equipment, training programs, and expertise. This enhances Senegal's ability to respond to security threats, including terrorism, piracy, and other transnational challenges, safeguarding national sovereignty and territorial integrity. Additionally, military cooperation with Russia promotes interoperability and joint exercises between Senegalese and Russian armed forces. This fosters professional development and enhances coordination in peacekeeping operations, humanitarian assistance, and disaster relief efforts, both domestically and regionally. Such collaboration contributes to stability and security in Senegal and the broader West African region. Furthermore, military cooperation with Russia can facilitate technology transfer and capacity building in critical areas such as cybersecurity, intelligence gathering, and counterterrorism strategies. This enables Senegal to strengthen its resilience against evolving security threats and adapt to emerging challenges in a rapidly changing global security landscape. From Russia's perspective, military cooperation with Senegal enhances its influence in Africa by deepening strategic partnerships and expanding its presence on the continent. By engaging with Senegal in defense cooperation initiatives, Russia can demonstrate its commitment to supporting African countries in addressing security challenges and promoting regional stability. Moreover, military cooperation with Senegal allows Russia to showcase its military capabilities and cultivate diplomatic ties with other African nations. As Russia strengthens its defense partnerships in Africa, it can leverage these relationships to pursue broader geopolitical objectives, including countering Western influence and advancing its regional strategic interests. But why Russia? How does Senegal's collaboration with Russia in strategic sectors align with its national development agenda? Senegal's collaboration with Russia in strategic sectors aligns closely with its national development agenda, contributing to key priorities and objectives outlined by the Senegalese government. One area of collaboration is in infrastructure development. Senegal's national development agenda includes initiatives to improve transportation networks, energy infrastructure, and telecommunications systems. Collaboration with Russia in sectors such as energy and infrastructure can provide Senegal with access to financing, technology, and expertise to implement large-scale projects that support economic growth and improve the quality of life for its citizens. For example, Russian investment in infrastructure projects, such as roads, bridges, and power plants, can help address infrastructure deficits and enhance connectivity within Senegal and across the region. Additionally, Senegal's national development agenda emphasizes the importance of economic diversification and industrialization. Collaboration with Russia in mining, agriculture, and manufacturing sectors can contribute to efforts to promote value-added industries, create jobs, and reduce dependence on traditional sectors. Russian expertise and investment in these strategic sectors can support Senegal's efforts to enhance its economy's productivity, competitiveness, and sustainability. Furthermore, Senegal's strategic sector collaboration with Russia aligns with its human capital development and capacity-building goals. Senegal seeks to improve education and skills training to empower its workforce and foster innovation and entrepreneurship. Collaboration with Russia in education, science, and technology can provide opportunities for knowledge transfer, research partnerships, and academic exchanges that strengthen Senegal's human capital base and promote long-term sustainable development. Moreover, Senegal's national development agenda emphasizes promoting regional integration and cooperation. Collaboration with Russia in strategic sectors can support Senegal's engagement with regional organizations and initiatives such as the Economic Community of West African States (ECOWAS) and the African Union (AU). By enhancing infrastructure connectivity, trade facilitation, and cross-border cooperation, Senegal's collaboration with Russia can contribute to regional stability, prosperity, and integration. Well, one thing is certain. Russia does not force Senegal to get rid of Western allies like France. Why is Senegal eager to do that? Senegal seeks to assert its sovereignty and independence by reducing its reliance on former colonial powers and diversifying its diplomatic relationships. This is motivated by a desire to break free from historical dependencies and establish a more balanced and equitable approach to international relations. But why is it important to get rid of France for that? Asserting sovereignty is crucial for Senegal to fully exercise its rights as an independent nation and to shape its destiny without external interference. Senegal's history of colonization by France has left a legacy of economic, political, and cultural influence that can sometimes impede its ability to make sovereign decisions. By reassessing its relationship with France, Senegal can assert its right to self-determination and pursue policies that align more closely with its national interests rather than being dictated by external agendas. Furthermore, ending ties with France could signify a symbolic break from the colonial past and a step towards a new identity as a truly independent nation. It would demonstrate Senegal's willingness to chart its course and take control of its future, free from the shadow of colonialism. What else made African nations tired of Western allies besides the historical factors? Neo-colonialism, a term coined in the mid-20th century to describe the continued economic and political dominance of former colonial powers over their former colonies, remains a potent force in shaping the dynamics of many African nations today. While formal colonialism may have officially ended with the wave of independence movements in the mid-20th century, the legacy of colonialism persists in the form of neo-colonial practices, which continue to influence African economies, politics, and resources. At its core, neo-colonialism is characterized by external powers' exploitation of African nations for their own economic and political gain. This exploitation often takes various forms, including unequal trade relations, foreign debt dependency, manipulation of local politics, and control over key resources. One of the most glaring manifestations of neo-colonialism is the continuation of unequal trade relations between Africa and the West. Despite efforts to promote fair trade practices, African nations often find themselves disadvantaged, forced to export raw materials at low prices while importing finished goods at inflated costs. This perpetuates a cycle of dependency on Western markets and hampers the development of indigenous industries. Moreover, the burden of foreign debt remains a significant obstacle to African development, with many nations struggling to repay loans acquired under unfavorable terms. These debts often come with stringent conditions imposed by international financial institutions, further entrenching the influence of external powers over African economies. In addition to economic exploitation, neo-colonialism also exerts a profound influence on the political landscape of many African nations. Western powers frequently intervene in the internal affairs of African countries, supporting regimes that align with their interests while undermining those that do not. This interference often leads to instability and conflict, perpetuating a cycle of dependence on external actors for political legitimacy and support. Furthermore, the control and exploitation of Africa's vast natural resources remain a central tenet of neo-colonialism. From minerals and oil to agricultural land, Western corporations exert significant influence over the extraction and exploitation of Africa's resources, often at the expense of local communities and the environment. The perception of ongoing neo-colonial practices fuels distrust among many African nations towards Western powers and fosters a strong desire to assert independence and sovereignty. Movements advocating for African unity, self-reliance, and Pan-Africanism have emerged as responses to the continued influence of neo-colonialism, seeking to break free from external control and chart a course toward genuine development and autonomy. But that's not the only reason African nations are so tired of the West. Economic exploitation of African nations by Western countries has been a persistent challenge that continues to hinder the continent's development and prosperity. This exploitation takes various forms, including unequal trade agreements, unfair resource extraction practices, and burdensome debt obligations, perpetuating dependency and hindering local development efforts. Unequal trade agreements lie at the heart of economic exploitation in Africa. Despite efforts to promote fair trade, African nations often find themselves disadvantaged in trade relations with Western countries. They are frequently compelled to export raw materials and commodities at low prices while importing finished goods at higher costs. This trade imbalance deprives African economies of potential revenue, and undermines efforts to build local industries and add value to raw materials. Unfair resource extraction practices further exacerbate economic exploitation in Africa. Western corporations often exploit Africa's abundant natural resources, including minerals, oil, and agricultural land, without adequately compensating local communities or investing in sustainable development initiatives. This extractive model not only perpetuates environmental degradation, but also fails to generate equitable benefits for the people of Africa, who often remain mired in poverty despite the wealth of their natural resources. Western countries' economic exploitation of African nations perpetuates dependency and hinders efforts to achieve sustainable development and prosperity. It reinforces structural inequalities and undermines African nations' ability to chart their path towards economic self-reliance and growth. These are enough reasons for the African nation to be eager to eliminate the West. But there is another: Western political influence. Political interference by Western powers in African politics has long been a contentious issue. Many African nations accuse external actors of meddling in their internal affairs, supporting authoritarian regimes, and undermining democratic processes. This interference erodes trust in Western allies and fuels resentment towards perceived external manipulation, undermining efforts to foster genuine democracy and stability in the region. One of the most significant manifestations of political interference in Africa is the support provided by Western powers to authoritarian regimes and dictators. In pursuit of strategic interests, Western governments have often backed oppressive regimes that are seen as friendly or conducive to their geopolitical objectives, regardless of their poor human rights records or lack of democratic legitimacy. This support not only encourages authoritarian leaders to suppress dissent and undermine democratic institutions, but also alienates ordinary citizens who aspire to democratic governance and respect for human rights. Furthermore, Western powers have been accused of actively undermining democratic processes in Africa through various means, including electoral manipulation, covert interventions, and support for opposition groups. This interference often exacerbates political instability and fosters a climate of mistrust and suspicion among different factions within African societies. Instead of promoting democratic values and institutions, external meddling serves to deepen divisions and undermine the legitimacy of democratic governance. Moreover, the imposition of conditionalities by Western donors and international financial institutions as a condition for aid and assistance has also been criticized as political interference. These conditionalities often prioritize Western interests over local priorities and undermine the sovereignty of African nations by dictating economic policies and governance reforms. Such interference not only stifles local initiatives for development, but also perpetuates dependency on external actors for financial support, further entrenching the influence of Western powers in African politics. The perception of political interference by Western powers fuels resentment and mistrust among many Africans towards their supposed allies and partners. It undermines efforts to build strong and independent democratic institutions and fosters a sense of disillusionment with the principles of democracy and good governance. Moreover, it provides fodder for anti-Western sentiment and extremist ideologies, posing challenges to regional stability and security. Overall, these factors and historical grievances contribute to African nations' weariness of relying solely on Western allies and their pursuit of more balanced and mutually beneficial international partnerships. Do you think Senegal is more confident about its decisions because of Russia? Can Russia be trusted? Let us know in the comment section if you think Russia is better than the West. Do you want to watch more videos like this one? If so, subscribe to our channel and press the bell icon next to it. We have decided to bring videos on something nobody talks about: the Black culture, civilization, history, and evidence about how glorious Blacks have been. Thanks for watching, and until the next video, stay tuned.